Tonight, we are looking for answers in the disappearance of a beautiful California beauty queen. Where is Mitrice Richardson? Her 25th birthday has come and gone during the 8 months since she vanished straight into thin air. Are cops any closer to finding this beautiful young woman? Mitrice was arrested in September for not paying an $89 tab at a swanky Malibu restaurant. Police released her from a remote substation in the middle of the night with no car, no purse, no money, and no phone. She just disappeared.
It is 1:38 in the morning. Outside the Lost Hills Sheriff Station in Calabasas, California, the road is empty. No streetlights bright enough to matter out here. No cars. No voices. Just silence and dark and a stretch of road that disappears into nothing on foot. A door opens. A young woman walks out alone. No phone in her hand. No car waiting in the lot. No one coming for her. Just the night in front of her and the door closing behind her. Her name is Mitrice Richardson. She is 24 years old. She is somebody's daughter. She had a plan for her life. A real one. With a timeline and everything. She takes one step forward. Then another. And then the dark swallows her completely. Mitrice Richardson was never seen alive again. The people who put her out there that night have never fully answered for it. You're watching Cases Decoded. And this is Mitrice's story. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now. Cases like Mitrice are exactly why this channel exists. Because some stories are too important to be forgotten. Before we talk about what happened to Mitrice Richardson, you need to know who she was. Not the case. Not the headlines. Not the missing persons report. The person. Because that is what gets lost when stories like this one get reduced to a name and a date. And Mitrice Richardson was not a name and a date. She was a specific, irreplaceable human being with a specific, irreplaceable life. And you need to feel that before this story goes any further. Her mother Latise was 17 years old and finishing her senior year of high school when Mitrice was born in 1985. Think about that for a moment. 17. Still a student. Still figuring out her own life. And now responsible for another one entirely. Mitrice's father Michael was just as young. They had met as teenagers, fallen in love the way teenagers do. Fast and certain and without a full picture of what was ahead. When Latise became pregnant, everything shifted overnight. They were living in what's at the time, and what's in the mid-1980s was carrying a weight that is difficult to overstate. Michael got pulled into the streets, into selling drugs, into the kind of fast money that always comes with a slow disaster attached. Not long after Mitrice was born, he was arrested and sentenced to 8 years in prison. And just like that, Latise was alone. But Latise did not stop moving. She graduated. She worked. She built herself back up from the ground while raising a daughter at the same time. She eventually remarried. And in 1993, when Mitrice was 8 years old, Latise packed up their lives and moved the family out of Watts and into the San Gabriel Valley. It was not just a move. It was a mother deciding that her daughter's future was worth more than her own comfort. And in that new environment, Mitrice thrived. She was active, creative, and full of personality. In middle school, she became a cheerleader. By high school, dance had taken over. It was not just something she did, it was who she was. Her aunt described her in an interview with Los Angeles magazine as a princess. Someone who did not like to get dirty. Someone who would rather be inside, dancing in the living room or writing in her journal, while other kids played outside. That detail is not a small one. That is a specific human being. After high school, she enrolled at California State University Fullerton, majored in psychology, and graduated with honors in 2008. She was already interning with a local psychologist who believed in her future in the field. Graduate school was the next step, and she was doing everything required to get there. By 2009, she was living back in Watts with her great-grandmother Mildred. She was interning. She was working a clerical job. She was also working with her girlfriend Tessa's father at his shipping company. She had come out to her family and was open about it and happy. She had a plan. A real one. That was Mitrice Richardson on the morning before everything changed. If the story is already sitting with you, drop a comment right now and tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. Everything was fine. And then it was not. The change did not arrive slowly over years. It did not build across a lifetime of warning signs that everyone ignored. It arrived in August 2009, and the woman on the other side of that shift was not the same woman who had been there before. Nobody saw it coming. It started at a dance club in Los Angeles. Mitrice met a woman there. She was interested in her. The woman was already in a relationship and made it clear she was not interested back. Most people absorb that and move on. Mitrice could not move on. Her behavior toward this woman became fixated in a way that alarmed the people watching it happen. According to reporting in Los Angeles magazine, the intensity grew over the following weeks. And then at some point Mitrice got into her car alone and drove to Las Vegas. Not for a trip, not for a vacation, but to show up at this woman's birthday party uninvited. A party being thrown for someone who had already told her to let it go. She showed up anyway. The woman eventually had to confront her directly and told Mitrice to leave her alone. And that should have been the end of it. But by then something else was happening. Something that had nothing to do with the woman from the club and everything to do with what was occurring inside Mitrice's own mind. Her MySpace posts began to change. What she shared started to feel different. Long, sprawling entries. Disjointed thoughts that looped back on themselves without landing anywhere. The people who knew her best read those posts and felt the first real pull of concern. Not because the words were threatening. Because the voice behind them did not sound like Mitrice anymore. And then came the messages to her mother. Latise felt it before she could name it. She reached out to Mitrice with the careful concern of a woman who knew her daughter well enough to know something was wrong even when she could not fully explain what it was. She wrote to her, "You have to tell me what's going on with you. You've been somewhat elusive and philosophical. Tell me what's up. Have you found yourself in a state of sadness? Are you crying without reason or understanding? I'm concerned. Help me understand what's going on with you. Are you feeling lost, helpless, alone, rejected?" Mitrice responded, "I'm writing a book, my journal, because you told me I can be anything I wanted. You told me I was Miss America. You told me I was America's next top model. Now do you know what I want to be when I grow up? Miss Mother Nature. Because Miss America is a fake-ass joke along with everything else we see. So I'm trying to find my way to Michelle Obama to see if she will talk to Mr. Obama about creating my position within the White House." Latise told her to call. Mitrice did not call. She sent another message instead. "I feel joy, mommy, and everything has to die to live. I heard in the Bible Jesus dies so we can live forever. Now I have to prove the unlogic." Mitrice had no known history of mental illness before this. None. Whatever was happening was new. And her family did not yet have the language or the resources to reach her in it. On September 16th, 2009, a Wednesday, a coworker saw Mitrice at work. They would later tell investigators she seemed happier than usual. She stayed a short time, left for lunch, and never came back. Later that afternoon, she returned briefly to the house in Watts where she lived with great-grandmother Mildred. She did not stay long. She did not explain where she was going. She left and Mildred watched her go. At some point that evening, Mitrice got into her Honda Civic and drove west. Not through South Los Angeles where she knew every street. All the way west to Malibu, a place she had no known connection to, no reason to be, and no one waiting for her. She pulled into the valet at Jeffrey's of Malibu, an upscale restaurant sitting above the Pacific Ocean on Pacific Coast Highway. The valet approached her and asked what brought her in that evening. Mitrice looked at him and said, "It's subliminal." Then she said something about avenging the death of Michael Jackson. The valet did not see her as a threat. He parked her car. When he returned to his booth, he found Mitrice sitting in his own vehicle, going through his glove compartment. He asked her to get out. She got out without resistance. Before she walked into the restaurant, he quietly warned the hostess. Something about this woman was not right. Mitrice went inside. She later ended up at a private residence in Malibu belonging to a man named Bill Smith. Deputies from the Lost Hills Sheriff's Station responded to that address. They took Mitrice into custody and transported her to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station in Calabasas. She was held inside that station for hours. An internal email from Lieutenant Scott Chu would later surface acknowledging that the arresting deputy believed Mitrice was acting unusual at the time of her arrest. They knew something was wrong, and at 1:38 in the morning on September 17, 2009, they opened the station doors and let her walk out. No phone returned. No car. No call to Latise. No call to Michael. No call to Tessa. No call to Mildred. No welfare check filed. No one notified. Just the doors opening. And Mitrice walking out into the dark. Alone. Before we go any further, drop your city and the time you are watching this in the comments right now. I want to know who is up with me tonight. When Latise Sutton found out her daughter was missing, she did not sit down. She made calls. She showed up at the station. She demanded answers. She spoke to anyone who would stand still long enough to listen. Michael Richardson did the same. 2 parents, 1 missing daughter, and a wall of institutional silence that neither of them could get through. What they would eventually discover, piece by piece, year by year, was not reassuring. The internal email from Lieutenant Scott Chu had acknowledged that the arresting deputy believed Mitrice was acting unusual the night she was brought in. That email was documented. That email existed. And when the Office of Independent Review released its 58-page report in July 2010 examining the department's handling of the case, that email was not mentioned anywhere inside it. Not once. A 58-page review of what happened to Mitrice Richardson, and the internal communication that spoke most directly to what the department knew about her condition before releasing her, was not included. The same report also acknowledged that investigators never interviewed the deputies who had direct contact with Mitrice the night she was released. They never interviewed the jailer. They never spoke to the people who were actually inside that station during the hours she was held there. How do you produce a thorough review of events without speaking to the witnesses to those events? A deputy had also appeared on surveillance footage leaving the Lost Hills Sheriff Station shortly after Mitrice walked out. When investigators became aware of this, he denied being there. His identity was not disclosed publicly for months. When authorities finally addressed his presence on the footage, they said he could not have been involved because he was on a call with his partner. But that explanation never addressed why he denied being there in the first place. Why deny being somewhere if being there meant nothing? In August 2010, 11 months after Mitrice disappeared, park rangers searching an area called Dark Canyon near Calabasas discovered human remains. The remains were later confirmed to be Mitrice Richardson. She was found approximately 8 miles from the Lost Hills Sheriff Station and approximately 2 miles from Bill Smith's home in Malibu. After the discovery, rangers notified law enforcement and left the scene. It took the sheriff's department approximately 90 minutes to contact the coroner's office. The coroner never arrived. Authorities said they were waiting for a helicopter that was unable to respond. So deputies collected Mitrice remains themselves. Without the coroner present. Without documented permission to move the body. Without photographing or preserving the scene before anything was disturbed. Standard protocol requires documentation before anything is touched. That was not done. When Mitrice was found, she was not fully clothed. Her clothing, a bra, a pair of jeans and a belt, was recovered hundreds of feet from her remains. The jeans were not torn. The belt was still buckled. Authorities suggested animal activity had moved her clothing. But the jeans had no damage. The belt was still fastened. Animals do not unbuckle belts. When that explanation was challenged, a different one was offered. That shifting groundwater may have displaced her clothing and possibly unbuckled her belt. Mitrice's family did not find that convincing. Neither has anyone else who has followed this case. The official cause of death was ruled undetermined. In 2016, the California Attorney General's office, then led by Kamala Harris, agreed to review the case after sustained pressure from Michael Richardson. After a full year of investigation, the office announced there was no evidence of wrongdoing by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The family later filed a wrongful death lawsuit. It was settled for $900,000 with no admission of wrongdoing. Not $1 of that settlement answered the question of what happened to Mitrice after that door closed. In 2019, a newly elected sheriff told the family he would take a fresh look at the case. Weeks later, he announced there was no reason to reopen it. Another door. Closed. Now I want to ask you something directly, because you have just heard everything that is documented about how this case was handled. And there are two ways to look at it. The first, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department made a series of catastrophic errors. A system that failed a young woman in crisis. Negligence. Institutional failure. The second, the omissions, the denied presence on surveillance footage, the evidence not collected, the witnesses never interviewed. That is not the fingerprint of incompetence. That is the fingerprint of something being deliberately managed. I am not going to tell you which one is right. Go to the comments right now and tell me what you believe. Was this negligence? Or was this something worse? Because Mitrice Richardson's family has been asking that question for 16 years and has never received a straight answer. And if Cases Decoded is the channel you come to for the cases that matter, subscribe right now, hit that bell, and turn on notifications. Every week we cover the stories that did not get the attention they deserved. And we do not stop until they do. The reports are filed. The lawsuit is settled. The sheriff reviewed the case in 2019 and announced there was no reason to reopen it. And after all of that, after 16 years of reviews and reports and lawsuits and settlements and promises of fresh looks that turned into closed files, nobody knows what happened to Mitrice Richardson after she walked out of that station. Not officially, not truthfully, not in any way that has ever given her family anything they could hold on to. But before this story ends, there is one more person who deserves to be seen fully. Her name was Latise Sutton. She was 17 years old, finishing high school when Mitrice was born. She moved her daughter out of Watts because she believed in what Mitrice could become. She built a business providing legal services while raising a child alone after Michael went to prison. She was not the kind of woman who accepted silence when her child's life was at stake. From the morning Mitrice went missing, Latise did not stop. She showed up at the Lost Hills Sheriff Station demanding answers. She made calls that went unanswered. She pushed on doors that stayed closed. She spoke publicly about Mitrice's case to journalists, to community advocates, to anyone with a platform willing to listen. When the 58-page report failed to provide real answers, she kept pushing. When the cause of death was ruled undetermined, she kept pushing. When the wrongful death settlement came with no admission of wrongdoing, she kept pushing. When the Attorney General found no wrongdoing after a full year of review, she kept pushing. When the sheriff promised a fresh look and then closed the file again weeks later, she kept pushing. She kept going because that is what it means to be a mother who lost a child to a system that will not tell you why. You do not get to put it down. You carry it every single day, to every meeting, every unanswered phone call, every year that passes without a straight answer. Latise Sutton carried it for 16 years. In September 2025, Latise Sutton passed away. She was 57 years old. She died still waiting, still not knowing what happened in the hours after that station released her daughter into the night. Still not knowing how Mitrice ended up 8 miles away in remote hill terrain with no phone and no way home. She never got the answer. Not once in 16 years. After this case, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department updated its policies. People released from custody would now have access to their cell phones before being sent out into the night. That policy change exists because of Mitrice Richardson. They made the change. They just never stood in front of her family and said her name when they made it. Those changes came too late for Mitrice, and they did not answer a single question her mother spent 16 years asking. As of 2024, a $20,000 reward has been reestablished for information leading to answers in this case. It has not been claimed. The case of Mitrice Richardson remains officially open with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which means somewhere out there, someone knows something. Someone who was inside that station on the night of September 16th into the early morning of September 17th, 2009. Someone who saw something in the area around Dark Canyon. Someone who has been carrying a piece of this story for 16 years and has never known what to do with it. If that person is watching this right now, Mitrice family is still listening. They have always been listening. Mitrice Richardson was 24 years old. She was a dancer who preferred writing in her journal indoors while other kids played outside. She was a psychology graduate with honors who had a plan for her life and was executing it one careful step at a time. She was loved without condition by a mother who never stopped fighting for her. She deserved better than that night. She deserved better than 16 years of closed files and unanswered questions. She deserved the truth. And so did her mother. Rest in peace, Mitrice Richardson. And rest in peace, Latise Sutton. Two women who deserved so much more than this story gave them. This case deserved to be told, and today it was. If you know anything about the disappearance and death of Mitrice Richardson, anything at all, share this video right now. Put it in front of as many people as possible. The reward is still unclaimed. The case is still open. And somewhere out there, the person who holds the missing piece of this story is still living their life as if that piece does not matter. It matters. Mitrice's family has spent 16 years proving that it matters. If you are new to Cases Decoded, this is the channel where we come for the cases that did not get the attention they deserved. Every week, every story, every name that got reduced to a case number and a closed file. Subscribe right now and hit that bell so you never miss a single one. We are just getting started. And before you go, leave a comment. Tell me what you think happened to Mitrice Richardson after she walked out of that station at 1:38 in the morning. Tell me whether you believe this was negligence or something worse. Tell me what you are carrying after watching this. I will be in the comments reading every single one. Because this conversation does not end when the video does, and Mitrice Richardson's case is still open. Which means this conversation should be too. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.